from the heart of Dubai, where tomorrow is being built today, to the world. Welcome to the CTO Show with Mehmet. Here, we redefine technology and reimagine possibilities. With Mehmet, delve into the riveting realms of AI, cybersecurity, and digital technology. Experience the thrilling highs and lows of startups. Immerse yourself in the spirit of entrepreneurship and witness the future of business innovation being written in real time. Now, without further ado, let's tune in and explore the future.
Hello and welcome back to a new episode of the CTO Show with Mehmet. Today I'm very pleased. Joining me from the UK, Hutton Henry. Hutton, the way I love to do it, I keep it to my guests to introduce themselves. Just I'm gonna give a kind of teasing to the audience. Hutton, he can speak about multiple things. So we're gonna talk about CEO-CTO relations. We're gonna talk about due diligence for founders. But Hutton, the floor is yours. Tell us a bit more about yourself.
All right. Thank you, Mehmet. And I'm really pleased to be here. Thank you for the invitation. So my simple pitch is that we help. I'm the founder, by the way, of Beyond M&A and the managing partner. And we help investors and founders maximize the value of their business, which I always get that question about, well, how? And there's lots of different levers, which are obviously around the business and market, people and technology. And I have a background, keeping it very short. I have a background of tech and M&A, starting with very big companies when Ford bought Jaguar, HP bought Compaq. And in the last 7 years, I've been running due diligence for investors of every type. So I'm really pleased to be talking with you.
Also, my pleasure to have you with me here, Hutton, today. So, there are multiple places we can, start with, but something, which I like to ask every guest, with your current journey and, with the background. So there must be some inspiration that led you to focus on, helping, both sides of the tables in preparing for either. So, in the world of funding and fundraising, they say it's a marriage, right? So either they're going to have a good marriage or maybe they're going to have a bad divorce later. And it's complicated. But what drove you to this side?
Yeah, I was very lucky, man. I mean, first of all, you mentioned the marriage piece. And I would say I had a VC say the other day, this is a marriage, but it's actually more difficult than a traditional one. You can't get rid of us. Which was said jovially, but it is, I think, a very important thing to consider that you are going to get into something that's going to be there long term, and we can talk about that. What got me into it is there's really 2 points in my career. So when I worked on that Ford Jaguar, I ran a tech project, and it went wrong, as tech projects do. And the learning was that we'd focused a lot on the tech, and we hadn't really thought about the impact I worked for a big corporate and we didn't really think about the people and how it was affecting them. Things have changed an awful lot since then. And then what got me into post-deal. So mergers and acquisitions and merging people, technology and businesses. Did that for a long time. And I really wanted to get pre-deal because I wanted to understand how the deal makers get there, really. And to cut a long story short, I worked for a company in 2015 and we bought over 50 companies in 2 years and integrated them. And that gave me my thirst for assessing companies. I think it's a really exciting piece of work. And that it really went from there.
Fantastic. Now, before I go to the due diligence part, you mentioned something about technology going wrong and so on.
Yeah.
And I know you help, CTOs, you do coaching and transactional analysis for them. So from that perspective, Hutton, what happens usually? What goes wrong, between the CTO and the CEO usually? Now, I'm asking this question because not all the time you have the CEO who would be the technical guy claiming the CTO position at the same time. So there will be a CEO, there will be a CTO, at least at the beginning, before they start to hire like more people on the board. So what are the main problems you see? What are like these clashes about?
Yeah, I think there's an underlying pressure that's what's so basically the very common scenario I see is we all attract each other to build something that is of interest to the market and therefore investors. So number one is that market trumps tech. If you found a really good market, your life is going to be much easier. So they have attracted to each other. They're building something, but as soon as that money comes in, it doesn't matter what, whether we look at a startup or a corporate, we find that, in most cases, when that round comes in, you've got new people to be reporting to and a separate set of values that are starting to kick in. And for the CEO, there's a lot of pressure to deliver very, very quickly because they'd spent a year or 2 years saying, we will hit these commercial numbers. But for the CTO, they're scaling really fast and they want to do things right. And that creates one of the most common friction areas, that they're operating in different speeds. And also the common problem I see for the CTO is they find it very hard to see the change in the team, in the leadership team. And so that's the main thing. So what does that mean for a business? We are starting to look at ourselves rather than our customers. We're starting to see dynamics that we weren't used to pre-deal. And this can go, as I say, after a private equity deal, they've been together for a long time. And we just have to be honest, right? That things are going to speed up. You're going to have to put more reporting in. You're going to have to put more robust tech in, and you're going to have to do it quickly. And what we can't do is take it personally. And that's the thing that I try and unpick between the two of them.
Quick question here about that, Hutton. Like, why, isn't like the CEO role and mission to bring everyone in the room up to speed? That guys probably, and maybe I can understand this, and I know that it happens still today.
Yeah.
But maybe if this is, we're talking about, let's say, during the .com bubble and so on. So not many people knew how, investors will think, how they will behave. But nowadays, I think with the knowledge is almost open source, I can call it.
Yeah.
Why the CEO, he or she, they don't bring the team up to speed and say, hey, listen, team, we're going for a round, whatever this round is, it's a seed, Series A. So expect moving forward, this will happen. Is there a communication problem, Hutton? Are they shy to tell their, co-founders and their early people? What's happening there?
I personally think I have a strong opinion on that. Generally, because we do the psychoanalysis of the team as well, these two people are at different ends of the spectrum on risk, innovation, build, all these different things are our opposites. And that should be like a yin and yang. But what really happens is they both go into overdrive in their different directions. So one becomes more risk averse. They're still building technology. The other one is pushing even more speed and commercials. They don't actually realize that both of them own the problem. And the CEO isn't prepared. They're not sure because they've spent so much time, especially in this climate, trying to attract the investor. And then they get the money and it's like, okay, we've got to deploy. We've got to get a bigger engineering team. We've got all these things. Personally, I would love them just to rest for a month, and just operate as they were, and then start to do things. It's quite exhausting raising as well, right? So
it is, yeah. I know it takes not only months. Sometimes it might take years to get that funding.
Yeah.
Do you think like this will happen to first-time founders. So probably if a founder is like a serial entrepreneur, he or she did some exits before. So probably they would know what's going to happen after that. So is that a problem that is more happening with first-time founders? And even like I'm talking first-time founder on both sides, CEO and CTO.
Yeah. It's a good question, Mehmet. I personally would say it's like you've got a different pop band each time. So, your first one might go really well. Your second one might have this problem because it's a fusion of personality, and so it can be you have a really easy ride on the first one, and the second one, you get all these dynamics. And I think it's a bit like having children, some people, their first one doesn't sleep, lots of things, and then they understand how to deal with that and it gets better. Or they're the other way and everything was really easy with the first one. The second one is like, oh my gosh, it can't sleep. It's all, she or he can't sleep, not it. And so, yeah, that's the thing. I think it's about a fusion of a team. So it can change, but the leader should try and mature if they can.
Now, I know it's not much related, but let's take the third party here, which is the investor.
Yeah.
Now, till now, and like the generation of investors, I read about and I see them, here and there, they were founders. So now we have a generation of VCs and, angel investors that at some stage they were themselves founders. And they must, I tell this to myself, they must know how hard it is to take a company from point A to point B, and they have raised funds. So don't you think that these guys should show like more? I'm not saying, go easy with the guys. Of course, you invest money to have returns, but then also they need to prepare also them, because we were talking about it just now. Like they are partners, right? So they're not like the two sides of the tables and, they take revenge. Why this is not happening? Why this is not happening, Hutton? Why the investors are not playing this role to, keep things on the pace that it should be?
Sometimes they're not aware of those early conflicts because the CEO has to hide it. It's like, the instant thing they're going to do is they're going to expand the team. And are those new people the right people, right? And that's their job, is to navigate that, find what's the thing, the three things of the CEO, right? Set the vision, find the money, get the people, off you go, right? That's the recipe. They're doing all those things. They got the money. They've set the vision. Now they have to get the people. And I think the investor would help. I think every investor we've worked with is interested. I've never seen, here's just some money. But it's a bit like, I guess, going to a therapist. And if you don't announce what the problem is, you can't help.
Mm-hmm. Now, coming back to the CTO.
Yeah.
So do you think there are CTOs that they are more flexible to work in such, environments? I mean, a startup environment where, these fund stages will come. Whereas like there will be some kind of CTOs that they cannot handle. So, and they are just, kind of CTOs who can, act in their best when they are into a big corporate world. Have you seen something like this?
So you mean like there's the difference in their delivery and how they,
yes,
depending on the scale of the business, or
yeah.
Okay. So I've written something about this. So, it's like the maturity of the business. You've got your early stage, so like startup, VCPE, right? That's how I see the world. Then corporate buyout, right? They're the 4 stages, and right. I can see the CTO going across those in maturity. Yeah. So you have that. I'm working with quite a young, CTO right now, and I can see where he is, and he's very open for change, right? And to me, my wish for him is as he grows, he can learn how to do startup, mid-cap, corporate. They all need different skills. Where you might have problems, and I see this is another one, which I think you might be alluding to, is I'm a enterprise CTO. I've got a lot of people working for me. I'm not necessarily hands-on anymore, if I was. And then now it's exciting to come to a startup. And in the startup, you need to be more resourceful. You've the pace has to be there. You're doing a lot of experiments, and so you can have a clash there.
And you need to keep you need to keep your hands dirty as well, as they say, right? So sometimes you would need to go do the things by yourself, because in the corporate, you might have huge teams that you just give the instructions to them, and then okay, maybe you would see what the results you evaluated. But in startups and even scale ups, maybe you need to get engaged more. I mean, even on the technical stuff, and going into more details, I would say, right, Hutton?
Yeah. I mean, as you talk to so many CTOs yourself, right? They come in many packages, sizes, and flavors, right? So it's hard for me to sort of push the brush on everyone. But what I see are the scale ups, right? I definitely see the dream makers, and I get like this front seat view of these dream makers. And who are they? In my world, they are the investor, the CTO, and the CEO, and they've all come up with this thing. And then I watch this thing happen. I don't want it to be a car crash. I want it to be a Disney film, and really deliver. So I just think that it's being adaptable, it's being mature when there's issues, because there will be faster pace, faster issues, quick to turn around, really.
Yeah. Now, I saw you talk, Hutton, about something called transactional analysis.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just explain to us what is it exactly, and how this affects the behavior of the CTO?
Yeah, well, and to be fair, the whole management team, right? So it's from the Bern Institute. It's a psychological way that we can understand our behavior. So you've got 3 modes that both of us have in primary, which is parent, adult, and child. And you can tell from those notes, right? If you're parent, you're caring, you're giving, you're understanding, you're empathetic. If you're in adult mode, you're in analysis time. It's sort of, I'm looking at things and I'm very much simplifying. And child this is joy, and I want to build and explore. Now, does that make sense first before I?
Yes.
That? Yeah,
it does. Absolutely.
So if you take 2 of those people, CTO and CEO, or CTO and CPO, right? If we're matching our roles, if we're both being empathetic and helping, that can help. But if one is being a child and the other one is being like even an adult, right? That's the hard one, right? Because I can often see sometimes the CEO is being like a child, very excitable, selling everything. It's like, we're going to do everything. And this clicks the CTO into analysis paralysis. We can't do that. Why did you sell that? We can't even, they're going to take us months to build that. Right. And so it's sort of, we're trying to match each other. And in reality, like in my job, I tend to be the parent. So I'm watching what they're doing and trying to level them in their communication. And you mentioned earlier, is there a communication problem? I think that's the main problem we all have today with working from home.
Okay, that's interesting, Hutton. Like, it's like managing this balance between flexibility, being wherever you want. Like sometimes having your startup multi-regional in the sense of the founding team, right? So maybe someone's in the US, someone in the UK, someone is in Dubai. You never know. But I hear it a lot from a lot of people, which makes sense actually, that like all this good. We can do Zoom calls, team calls, all these things, but at some stage there is few things that would not be replaceable. I mean, especially some tasks that you need to have a face-to-face. You need to see the other person. They need to be in the same room physically, not virtually, so they can deliver. Which is it makes sense a lot, and I like this approach of being the parent. I imagine that it has a lot of headache for you as well, right?
But why do you imagine that? I'm just out of interest. Why?
Because I'm sure, like, I mean, and I put it like in a kind of a humoric sense. I mean, the CTO would be saying like, "Hey, Hutton, like this guy, he's so demanding. He keeps over promising. I don't know, maybe he's doing all these things, On the other side, if you sit with the other side, they'll say, hey, they are slow, I'm waiting on this feature for months now and it's not coming. So, like you need to have this, kind of patience yourself, I believe, right?
Yeah. So it's sort of cutting through the dynamic. So going back to your Zoom thing, right? Sometimes we need to be in the room because we need to have a challenging conversation and we need to get over it, so the worst thing for me for a CTO is to take something really personally, because they're normally very good. And you remember the adult child thing? Most of us came into tech as children, right? We love it. We love building it. When we go into the workforce, we have high value in a very short time. Within a few months of being your first job, you will provide value. It's quite unusual compared to, say, a salesperson. And I tested this some time ago. I'm in my mid-50s now, but, maybe 10 years ago, I went on a course for a non-tech course. I went on a telesales course with all these 18 and 19-year-olds. So I was like around coming up to, 45, 50. And I was this old guy sitting with all of these 18, 19-year-olds. And they were not tech people. They're very outgoing because they're sales oriented. They were picked for that and they were gravitating to that. And what I found really interesting is in that training, they taught them how to deal with people, how to read them, how to hear things on the phone and understand them. We do not get that as tech people. And what ends up happening, we can stay on that ladder of being the child until we finish our career. No one picks us up. So it's a really interesting issue. And then, as you were saying, with the dynamic between them and sitting in between it, usually I can see a cut through. I can see where the mistake is. Will both of them listen? And so I hope you can see I'm not blaming the CTO. I actually think both sides own 50% of the problem, and you got it you nailed it, right? It's that we're not shipping fast enough.
Yeah.
It's the thing, right? It's on every company. I went to dinner with a load of founders last night, all of them saying the same thing.
I'm of course, maybe I'm biased, but sometimes CTOs, if they have kind of an imposter syndrome that they want to ship the best, and we talked about it at the beginning, actually. We want the product to be flawlessly rolled out, 0 bugs, which is not possible, of course. We all know this, right? State of art. Yeah, of course, you should aim for the best, but, this is why there is something called lean. And I think if we apply the lean more, we would have like less issues like that. On the same side, I don't want to put the blame on the CTOs again here. I believe, if they come and agree on a common ground, which is basically, I shared a video like a couple of weeks back, about the founder of box.com. And he was talking about, they were shipping one feature at a time, right? One single feature. And people are saying, you're crazy. You should put all these he said, no, we were shipping one feature at a time. And see, look, they are a very successful SaaS company today.
Yeah.
Because, and he's a CEO, by the way. He understood that. So I think, back to your point, Hutton, about the communication and I think the vision. So if both parties sit down and they agree, look, this is the vision, this is the time frame we think logically, if they agree, of course, between them, we should have these milestones and then, we'll see how it goes after that. I think, this common ground and, because what you explained, and I think this is why I told you your mission is a little bit not tough, but challenging because you have to hear both sides of the tables. So very interesting. Yeah. Now, Hutton, I want to shift to the due diligence part, right? And due diligence, you just mentioned we do due diligence. I mean, in general, before merger and acquisitions, sometimes, investors before they go to startups. So there are multiple types of due diligence. Now, from the area where you specialize more or you have the most experience, if you can walk me through the process of a due diligence and what usually goes wrong there.
Okay, yeah, no worries. So typically, an engagement with us is 2 to 3 weeks. We'll understand the entire business tech stack. The whole thing we will understand within 2 to 3 weeks, which is why I love this job, right? Because if you remember the other side of where I used to work on post-deal, the same type of discovery might take 9 months. Because you're looking at all this detail here. So there's a high level of pressure on the team to give us everything we need. We need a lot of documentation, even on a startup. We interview people. We look at the code. We also do a cyber assessment. That's one of our USPs. And the other thing is, if we're allowed, we'll also do a psychoanalysis of the team. It doesn't happen as often as I would like because people are nervous around that assessment. Then they're happy of everything being assessed. But when they go to people's brains, it's like, oh, that's maybe a bit too sensitive. And I get their thing. So that's the first piece is assessment. We then look at that as a team. So there's always, it's a small business. There's like 13 of us and 5 specifically CIO, CTOs. All of them have exited a company. So they've been through the whole life cycle and we don't have any junior people. So, but, I can code still, so can a few of them. So it's not like where number one is it's not an audit. This is a collaboration between the startup, the CTO and the investor and us. And we're trying to understand what have you made? And we basically take the growth plan, understand what they've made, and then work out whether it will sort of reach the goals that they've stated. And then we'll find the common sort of problem. So you have a set of common problems versus unique to them. And when we find unique issues, we will set some challenges for them. Can you do this? Can you try that? So that's the overall piece.
Yeah, Hutton. So what can go wrong in this process?
Yeah. So I think first of all, don't be nervous, right? This is an opportunity to find out what can be fixed, right? And so the money's coming in and we find issues. Generally, on average, we find, on average, 10 new opportunities, different ways to do things. And then around 250K of extra spend, which has if you multiply that by 10, that's 2.5 of EBITDA that is affected, right? That's on average. So 2.5 million. Anyway, the kind of typical things, number one, cyber. It doesn't matter where you are on the stage. We could be looking at a corporate around the world or a mid-cap in UK or a startup in Germany. The cyber tends to be an issue, which is a real shame. And you know why that is? It's usually because of the focus on the revenue side of the company. So we're building SaaS. We're not fully secure. And if you're going to get investment, they will want you to be better. So it was perfectly fine while it was under your remit. As soon as it's under the investment remit, we need to make cyber better. So there's lots of ways of maturing that. That's the number one. But then everything else is quite varied. And we're not a cyber company. It just happens to be that's where things are. That's on top of mind. Mm-hmm. You can imagine code is always an amber in our reports because there's always better ways of doing things. So, but generally there's not usually a problem there. One of the things that we find a lot of the time is that the CTO is quite self-depreciating about the architecture, and we have to help them increase their attitude and their positivity about what they've made, because they're so open with us and they go, I wish it could do this. And the most normal one is the monolith to microservices. I really wish we built it in microservices. We see companies with 200 million turnover on a monolith. So you have to think with an investor's hat on. Do you really need to go down that journey of changing everything? Because that's changing the business they're investing into, really.
Mhm.
They're the sort of the high level things. Technically, there often is a lack of some skills. DevOps, QA is so common as an issue. Not testing, or everyone's testing, or no one's responsible. There's so many variants on that one, but it is very common. And I mean, the list goes on. In fact, to the point that I have two things really I have a lot of material available on this, on what the common issues are. And we do that on the tech stack and also on the person. So there's common issues with the CTOs as well. And we also have a platform where people can learn what goes wrong and they just fix them themselves, really.
So how easy for the team to accept, this, let's call them the amber, not the red flags. Because flag, I'm sure red flag would be, oh, no, I don't have red flags. So they would take it maybe a little bit aggressively.
Yeah.
So, but, how have you seen, teams accepting that they have done something, I would not say wrong, I would say not in the proper way?
Honestly, most are very accepting. The occasional one where it depends how you do this, right? So if you put them all in the boardroom and then the CTO's there and it's the first time he sees it, that's unfair, right? Because, he needs time to do it. So when we present back, we always think that he's going to read it or she's going to read it, right? And they're going to get like the investor view, and we also put a tech view in the report. And long story short, we work with them to work through these and like, are they fair? Are they, are we correct? And in most cases, it's very seldom, but we also warn them at the beginning. It's very common to have an all amber report. And it's also common to have red flags.
It's common. Yeah, of course. Like no one can do, especially if they are like first time they are doing this, I believe they will have, because you mentioned something very interesting, and you said like this is number one about cybersecurity, right? So because I've seen a lot of people, like they have brilliant ideas, they have the technical know-how, but they get so excited that they forget about this part. Like, I mean, and when I go and I ask them, guys, like I used to do this like last year a lot, and I said, tell me about, for example, some of your cybersecurity measures that you take. Like, are you using like simple tasks? Like, are you using multi-factor authentication? Have you implemented this? And look, I didn't go yet to ask them about if they are SOC compliant or SOC 2 compliant. I didn't go to all this stuff. But really, I'm not sure what happens, but it's good, like Hutton, like there are like people like yourself who also, you're not acting to do due diligence for the sake of due diligence, but you're actually trying to be kind of an advisor for them at the same time, right? So from the investor's point of view, like after, what do they look at the report that you bring back to them? Like what do you think is the first thing they would do?
No, so I have a general report from us is like 30 to 40 pages. They only look at 3 of those pages. How soul destroying is that, right? I write every single report. I oversee it anyway. And so they look at the high level, which is always about, the team, the tech stack, and cyber. That's the high level page. Then there's a detailed overview of and really they want to, because remember, these reports go to the banks, they go everywhere, right? So, what they're really trying to do is, how does this come across? Is it a general red? Because we're never going to get through the investment. And then the last page that's really important is the remediation page, which is all of the things that we think they need to do, a well-architected review, backing up code, all these different things that we add to the list. And the thing is, they're not worried too much about the detail. They're worried about the OPEX spend. Because it impacts the value of the business, not the CapEx spend.
Absolutely. Does that differ, Hutton, from sector to sector, vertical to vertical, I mean, like, and also does it differ from size to size? Just to give some example and numbers. So does the process for a fintech startup goes in the same way that you do it for, let's say, an e-commerce startup, or maybe a startup with 10 employees versus a startup with, which they are now like, let's say 100 employees? Like, are there like different also approaches and,
Yeah.
ways of doing this? Yeah.
Yeah. So there is, the ethos is exactly the same. So the 3 parts to our thing, we call it ACT, assess, challenge, transform. They're the 3 stages of what we do. And you still need a reasonable amount of information on these very small startups. So, that they don't get away with less, really, unfortunately. But to answer your question, it's how our head assesses it, right? So you mentioned fintech. So we have like a maturity index, and anything that's towards, 0 to 10. And if you're in financial services, we will be harder on that. You have to, there's no way you should get away with that, and we see it a lot in fintech, and there's a lot of problems we see, which is quite surprising. So basically it's learning, earning. It really is different things. And what we're looking for is at early stage is the ability to learn. And one of the things I'm noticing is there's a massive divide going on right now, I think, with the whole thing with AI, where we are either working with AI or in it. And most of us are working with AI. We're taking something that's been packaged by AWS or, Microsoft. We add a Python module, off we go. We've done something really cool with it, but we're not building AI. But these guys over here, they're young founders, PhDs, 10 people in the team, and their first round will be like 20 million because they need that to start. And that's created a class system of the people who can raise that type of money. So it'd be interesting to hear what that's like in MENA and the VC world with you in your region, because that's what I'm seeing is that this is around how risk averse your country is with investment.
So, this is very, really, really interesting. But
yeah,
the question that came to my mind, Hutton, why, as a founder, I don't start to do this before even I go out and I start to look for funding? Isn't like more reasonable that I do this even before I start to talk to investors? So when I go to them, I said, hey, and by the way, like this is the, kind of, I don't want to call it audit, but I mean, these things that usually the investors will look for. So look, I have all these done. So why they don't come early and do it?
Yeah. Okay, great. So there's 2 things there. I totally agree with you. is number 1. And number 2, I think we're human beings and we need a deadline. And when you go for an investment, the energy that goes in is high and they end up doing all the paperwork. To be frank, everyone we meet is never prepared. And I do believe we should turn it around quicker. And I also think that a company worth selling or investing in is one that's worth you keeping if you can do it. So why not learn these things early before you need investment? And then you have a better company, right? It's so much more polished. You can walk around being confident, which is, I don't know if I'd shared this, that I spent 7 years helping the investors with this. And then I flipped it. And now I'm helping the founders just like go for it. A very low cost. It's like, I want you guys to win. And I've been to the investment community and said, would you have a problem with me doing this? Giving away all of the secrets and everything that's common. So at least we're only dealing with the things that are unique. And they're like, yeah, go for it, Hutton, because the investors on their side, they really don't want it to go wrong. They've put a bet on to think, right, I really believe in you, Mehmet, and your startup. And I've been talking to you for 6 months. And now I'm going to spend some money on due diligence. So what they don't really want to find out is it's not investable.
True, 100%.
Yeah.
I like this because, this will shorten, because we talked about like how hard and, it's a long journey to find, or to close the round for founders nowadays. Especially, it was very tough last year, 2023. So I think this is also will help in shrinking the time of at least closing the deal. Instead of waiting weeks and months, so it can be done maybe in matter of like 1 or 2 weeks. So yeah.
I think, to be honest, though, we have to look at the other side of this. Is if I was the investor, I would do what's happening in the last 2 years. If the deals are taking longer, and so do you remember there's this pressure that happens post-deal with the money? Mm-hmm. What's happening is this pressure is kicking in earlier because we're taking so long to so you came, in the old days, you promised something to me. I'm like, wow, I believe in you. Here's the money. Let's go. Right. We take the chance. Now the diligence and everything taking so long, we can test whether the things that you're talking about actually happened in those months. So it's like a very cautious thing. So the pressure on the founder and the CTO is much higher pre-deal than it used to be.
Yeah. Makes sense. Hutton, as we almost coming to an end. Just final advice that you want to give to fellow founders and fellow CTOs also as well. Any final words of wisdom, I would call it. And if people want to get in touch, where to find you.
Thank you, Mehmet. So the final thing really is think about value, not cost, right? And so that's the ultimate thing that helps everyone, including your customers. And what we do have is a CTO scorecard. It's 50 questions. It gives you half of all the problems that I see. Very, very, I spend a lot of time on it, and it would help you. And it's not for me to market at you. It's for you to learn these obvious things and get rid of them, right? And it would take you 5 to 10 minutes max. And you were saying, let's do this early. This is a very quick way of getting that done. So, and in terms of connection, is a link tree. And if you know that system, with Hutton Henry as the URL. So.
Yeah, sure. Audience, they don't need to worry. They will find it in the show notes. So if you are listening on your favorite podcasting app, you will find it in the show notes. If you're watching this on YouTube, also you'll find it in the description of the video. Hutton, really, I enjoyed the conversation. I learned a lot about that side of the due diligence. Thank you very much for sharing this, and of course also the conversation about the CEO, CTO. How they can have kind of resolve the clash that might come up post deal. So this is also very, very, very important. Thank you for sharing that with us today. I really appreciate the time. And as I said, you can connect with Hutton. I will share the link tree in the show notes and in the description, so you can go and check it out there. And don't miss the scorecard that Hutton mentioned. I've seen it, and it's very good. So again, this is how I usually end my episodes. This is for the audience. If you just discovered this podcast by luck, thank you for passing by. I really appreciate it. If you like it, please subscribe and share it with your friends and colleagues. And if you are one of the people who keeps coming back again and again, sending me their suggestions, comments, and your questions, please keep doing so. I read all of them. I come back to you, and I try always to fix if there is something wrong. If there's a good suggestion, I take it into consideration. So please keep them coming. I really appreciate all of that. And as I say always, thank you very much for tuning in. We'll meet again very soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mehmet.
Hit that subscribe button. Share the show with your tech-savvy friends and fellow entrepreneurs. And leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. Your support means the world to us.